Imagine you produce just a massive electronic club hit.
Oh, the dream scenario, right?
Right. It streams millions of times, it goes viral, it gets played on Sirius XM during prime time, and you don't earn a single penny.
Which is brutal, but honestly, it happens to artists every single day.
It really does. So welcome to a brand new deep dive designed specifically for your curious mind. Today, our mission is to unpack the ultimate modern blueprint for building an independent music label from scratch in 2026.
Yeah, and we've got a really great case study for this.
We do. We are pulling this apart using a comprehensive case study based on the inner workings of a Miami-based independent electronic music label called 786Muzik Publishing LLC.
Right, 786Muzik.
Yeah, and we're looking at how they completely avoid that fatal mistake most artists make when turning their art into a business. Okay, let's unpack this, because when most people think about starting a label, they think it's all, champagne, studio sessions, and just uploading tracks to Spotify.
Right, the glamorous stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a critical distinction to make right out of the gate here. We are not just looking at a guide on how to release a song.
No, definitely not.
We are analyzing how a modern creative business takes intangible vibes, right, and engineers them into a legally protected multi-revenue stream machine.
A machine, right.
Exactly, because if you do not build the machine correctly, those vibes they evaporate into the digital ether. And they take your potential revenue right along with them.
Yeah, you can't catch the money your music makes if you haven't built the plumbing to hold it.
That's a perfect way to put it.
So let's start with the foundation, because based on the sources, 786Muzik, they didn't release a single track until they had their legal house in order.
Not a single one.
Right. They formed a single-member LLC, they secured an employer identification number, an EIN, and they filed their W-9s. And I want to start right there.
So let's do it.
For someone listening right now who just wants to get their beats on Spotify, doing tax documentation before you even have an album cover seems, a bit extreme. Like, is a W-9 genuinely necessary just to upload music?
Well, it is if you actually want to get paid.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, Spotify and Apple Music aren't paying you directly in a vacuum. The distribution platforms and the royalty collection agencies that process those payments, they're corporate entities.
Right, they have to follow the rules.
Exactly. They are subject to tax law. So if you don't have a W-9 on file attached to a legitimate EIN, these platforms are legally required to either implement backup withholding.
Wait, backup withholding?
Yeah, meaning the IRS basically takes a massive chunk of your royalties before you even see them, or worse, they simply freeze your payouts altogether.
Oh, wow. So the paperwork essentially weaponizes the song into a financial asset. Like we said, it builds the plumbing to hold the money.
Precisely. It builds the plumbing, and that plumbing gets incredibly specific,
Well,
After the LLC was formed, 786Muzik set up publishing accounts across a whole alphabet soup of organizations.
oh yeah, I saw this in the case study. BMI, Sound Exchange, the MLC, and Song Trust.
Right, that exact combination.
I'm going to need you to clarify that alphabet soup for us, actually. Why so many different accounts? Doesn't a place like BMI just handle all the royalties?
You'd think so, right? But that is actually a very common misconception. Each of those organizations acts as a highly specialized trap in the plumbing system.
Okay.
And each one catches a completely different type of royalty. So BMI is a performing rights organization.
Right, a PRO.
Exactly. They capture public performance royalties. So if a DJ plays your track in a club in Miami, or say it gets used as bumper music on a television broadcast, BMI collects that money.
Okay, makes sense. But what about when the track is played digitally, like on satellite radio or something?
And that is exactly why they need Sound Exchange.
Okay.
Sound Exchange targets digital performance royalties. They actually use audio fingerprinting technology to track every single time your song plays on Sirius XM or Pandora.
Wow. Every time.
Every time. Then you have the MLC, that's the Mechanical Licensing Collective.
Right, I've heard of them. What do they do?
They exist strictly to hunt down the mechanical royalties generated by interactive streaming services in the U.S.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning every time someone actively clicks play on Spotify.
Oh, interactive. Got it.
Right. And finally, Song Trust acts as a global administrator to collect all of these varied publishing royalties worldwide.
So wait, if 786Muzik skipped even one of these registrations, say they just, ignored Sound Exchange, anytime their music played on satellite radio, that money would just sit in a black box forever.
Well, it would sit there for a designated period.
Yeah.
And then it would actually be paid out based on market share to other artists.
You've got to be kidding me.
Nope. You are literally leaving your money on the table to be distributed to major labels.
That is terrifying, honestly.
It really is. It's why the foundation is so critical.
Okay, so getting that LLC and those accounts set up is just the legal baseline, because the sources make it clear that the real engine of this entire operation, the actual mechanism that ensures all those organizations know exactly who to pay, is metadata.
Yes, the magic of metadata.
Right, and 786Muzik manages a catalog of about 50 to 60 tracks, and they don't rely on sticky notes or just memory to track this stuff. They built a fully customized Notion database.
Yeah, and in that database, they track sequential ISRC codes for every single release.
Which is the International Standard Recording Code, right?
Exactly. Think of the ISRC as a digital fingerprint. It's a unique 12-character alphanumeric string assigned to every single track.
Okay, but lots of people use ISRCs.
They do, but 786Muzik takes their metadata to a level of technical precision that most independent labels completely ignore.
How so?
They use a specific workflow to create what they call a proof package PDF for every release. And to do this, they embed broadcast wave format or BWF metadata directly into the audio files.
Okay, using that tool right. BWF meta edit.
Yes, BWF meta edit.
Let's slow down and unpack BWF meta edit for a second. What does it actually mean to embed metadata into the audio file? Doesn't the streaming platform just read the title you type in when you upload the song?
For a basic streaming platform like Spotify, yes, they read what you type. But remember, 786Muzik is building a catalog for global broadcast.
Right, they're thinking bigger.
Exactly. BWF meta edit, specifically adhering to the Beck's version 2 standard, literally rewrites the chunk header of the WAV file itself.
So it's not just a tag attached to the file.
No, it injects text data, the artist name, the ISRC code, the copyright owner, directly into the audio file's underlying code.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if a radio station in Germany downloads the raw WAV file and drops it into their broadcasting software, the software instantly reads that Beck's version 2 header.
Before it even plays.
Exactly. It knows exactly who to credit and who to pay before the audio even begins to play. The metadata isn't loosely attached. It is permanently baked into the audio itself.
Okay, that makes total sense. Now let's talk about the cryptographic element.
Hashes, yeah.
Right, because the case study details how they generate a SHA-256 hash for every single release as part of this proof package PDF, and I'm going to need you to translate that for us.
Sure thing.
What does a cryptographic hash actually do to an audio file?
Well, a SHA-256 hash is basically an algorithm. It takes the exact digital contents of a file, literally every single 1 and 0 that makes up the audio, and processes it into a unique, fixed 64-character string of letters and numbers.
Oh, I get it. Wait, so is generating a SHA-256 hash for every release basically like melting a digital wax seal on the envelope?
That is a fantastic analogy.
Yes, because it proves exactly when the track was finished and guarantees nobody has tampered with it.
It does, but it actually goes even deeper than just a visual seal. It is an active tripwire.
A tripwire? How?
Because the hash is generated from the exact audio data, if someone takes that track and alters it even slightly, let's say they try to illegally sample just the kick drum, the underlying 1s and 0s of the file change.
Okay, so the file is fundamentally different.
Right. And if you run that altered file through the algorithm again, the hash completely shatters. It generates a totally different 64-character string.
Ah, I see. So by generating that initial hash on the very day the final master is finished and putting it into their proof package PDF alongside the ISRC and BWF metadata,
they create absolute, mathematically time-stamped proof of ownership.
That is incredible.
Exactly. If there's ever a dispute over who owns a track, 786Muzik doesn't have to argue. They don't need expensive lawyers to debate it. They just produce the hash. It makes their legal claim mathematically airtight.
Okay, so the file is completely weaponized. It has its digital wax seal. It has airtight metadata. And the legal plumbing is all connected to catch the money.
Check, check, and check.
Now, it has to be shipped out to the world. And the pipeline you choose dictates how big your label can actually grow.
Definitely. Distribution is everything.
Right. Which brings us to a massive transition detailed in the sources. 786Muzik's deliberate decision to migrate their entire catalog distribution away from DistroKid and over to Symphonic.
A huge move for them.
Yeah, and I want to push back on this a little bit just to play devil's advocate for anyone listening. DistroKid is incredibly popular. Millions of artists use it because it's fast and it's cheap. Are we saying those millions of artists are doing it wrong?
Not at all. DistroKid is phenomenal for beginners, precisely because of its speed and its low flat fee cost.
Okay, so it has its place.
Oh, absolutely. If you are a solo artist and you just want to get your first single onto Spotify by Friday, it is arguably the best tool for the job. But we're talking about building a label.
Right, a scaling business.
Exactly. And the limitations of a beginner platform become incredibly obvious when you try to operate at a label scale.
If DistroKid is so fast and cheap, what is the exact breaking point? Like, where does an independent label look at their operations and say, we have outgrown this, we absolutely must migrate our catalog to Symphonic?
The breaking point almost always comes down to two things: infrastructure and accounting.
Okay, walk me through that.
When you are managing 50 or 60 tracks, you aren't just dealing with one solo artist anymore. You are dealing with multiple collaborating artists, featured vocalists, producers, and remixers.
And they all need to get paid.
Right. That requires complex royalty splits and really detailed analytics. 786Muzik evaluates their distribution based on 8 specific criteria. They look at things like marketing support, payout speed, and dedicated customer service.
And Symphonic hits those marks.
Yes. Symphonic provides infrastructure and services specifically designed for managing a label roster. They parse out those complex accounting splits automatically.
But moving a catalog of 60 tracks sounds like an absolute logistical nightmare.
Oh, it is a massive undertaking. When you migrate a catalog, you literally have to take down your releases from one distributor and re-upload them through the new one.
That sounds risky.
It's incredibly risky because if you make a single typo with your ISRC codes or your BWF metadata during that migration, Spotify just treats the re-upload as a brand new song.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you lose all your playlist placements, and a track with, say, 5 million streams instantly resets to 0.
That is a catastrophic risk for an independent label.
It is, which is exactly why that meticulous Notion database and those proof package PDFs we talked about are so vital.
Right. It all connects.
It does. They allow 786Muzik to execute that migration flawlessly. They recognized that to grow into a real label, they needed a label tier partner like Symphonic, and they actually had the organized data required to make the jump safely.
Okay, so Symphonic gets you onto the streaming platform safely, but look, we all know the math on streaming payouts is notoriously brutal.
Oh, it's fractions of a penny.
Right. Fighting for fractions of a penny per play is not a sustainable business model. So how does a label actually keep the lights on and scale if Spotify is paying out micro pennies?
Well, a true label does not rely purely on streaming.
They don't.
No, they use streaming as a discovery tool. But they build active, diversified revenue engines elsewhere. And according to the case study, this is where 786Muzik truly excels, starting with how they leverage the YouTube ecosystem.
I have to admit, when I read that part in the sources, I was pretty surprised. Most independent artists I know treat YouTube like a digital landfill.
Oh, landfill. Yeah, that's accurate.
They really do. They just dump their static album artwork with the audio track and just pray the algorithm magically finds them an audience.
And that strategy almost never works. 786Muzik, by contrast, they treat YouTube like a dedicated broadcast network.
Meaning they produce different types of shows.
Exactly. They employ a multi-series strategy.
Right.
They don't just post isolated songs. They produce weekly and bi-weekly mix series, podcast content, and documentary storytelling.
But how does that actually translate to real revenue? The sources mention they hit monetization thresholds, which I know require thousands of watch hours and subscribers, by using visually consistent thumbnails and targeted SEO for the electronic music niche.
Right.
But how do thumbnails actually train an algorithm? I mean, they're just pictures.
It's actually a psychological trigger that feeds directly into the machine learning.
Okay, how so?
By keeping their thumbnails visually consistent, they train the YouTube algorithm and the viewer, honestly, to instantly recognize their brand.
Oh, I see.
So if a listener clicks on a 786Muzik mix and enjoys it, and then the algorithm sees another visually identical thumbnail sitting right there in the sidebar, it knows there's a really high probability the viewer will click it.
So it just automatically serves them another one.
Exactly. The algorithm automatically feeds them another mix, which keeps them on the platform longer. This artificially inflates their watch hours, allowing them to hit those monetization thresholds significantly faster than an artist who is just uploading static album art.
That is brilliant. It's not just about making the channel look nice. It's about actively hacking the audience retention metrics.
Yes, it's highly intentional.
Which leads us perfectly to the other massive pipeline they built, sync licensing.
Ah, yes, sync.
Getting music placed in film, TV, and advertising. The sources point out that a single sync placement can generate more revenue than an entire year of streaming.
Easily.
Yeah.
It is arguably the most lucrative area of the modern music business for an independent artist right now.
And 786Muzik goes after this hard.
They do. They use specific sync platforms like MusicBed, Artlist, and Epidemic Sound to get their tracks in front of video creators. But they also pursue direct corporate sync.
And they brand it in a very specific way, right?
Yeah, they actively position their catalog with a very specific brand identity. They call the soundtrack to urban movement.
The soundtrack to urban movement, that is incredibly smart positioning.
Right, because it paints a picture.
Yeah, if a music supervisor is working on a commercial for a sports car driving through a city at night, they know exactly whose catalog to search.
Exactly. It completely removes the guesswork for the music supervisor.
But, and this is what I kept wondering as I read this, how does a small Miami independent label actually win those placements over massive major labels?
It's all about leverage.
The sources talk about this indie superpower in sync licensing, and I want to make sure I'm understanding the mechanics of this correctly.
Go for it.
Okay, so there are two sides to a sync deal, right? There is the sync license, which is the permission to use the underlying composition. That's usually controlled by the publisher.
Correct.
And then there's the master license, which is the permission to use the actual sound recording. And that's usually controlled by the record label.
That is exactly right. And in the major label system, those two sides are almost always owned by entirely different massive corporations.
Wait a minute. Here's where it gets really interesting. 786Muzik Publishing LLC is an independent label that owns both the master and the publishing.
Yes, they own it all.
Does that mean they can bypass the major label lawyers entirely? Like, are music supervisors for big TV shows deliberately hunting for independent labels like 786Muzik specifically because they own both? Is it just so the TV network doesn't have to deal with clearing rights from 5 different lawyers?
You have absolutely nailed the dynamic. That is exactly why music supervisors love well-organized independent labels.
Wow.
Think about it. If a supervisor wants to use a major pop song for a simple 30-second commercial, they might have to spend weeks negotiating with Sony just for the master recording.
And then they still have to get the publishing.
Right. And they have to negotiate with Warner Chappell and maybe 3 different independent songwriters for the publishing rights.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It can take months of legal back and forth. And if just one of those songwriters says no, the entire deal dies.
But with 786Muzik?
With 786Muzik, the supervisor makes one phone call, signs one piece of paper, and both sides of the track are instantly cleared.
That is a massive competitive advantage.
It is huge. But, and this is a crucial caveat here, to capitalize on this one-stop shop advantage, the catalog has to be what the industry calls sync ready.
Meaning we are back to the unglamorous paperwork and metadata.
Always back to the paperwork.
Yeah.
Because when a music supervisor reaches out, they don't have time to wait. They need to see that proof package PDF immediately.
Right, they need the proof.
They need guaranteed, mathematically backed clearance documentation. Furthermore, they need the audio delivered in highly specific formats.
Not just the MP3.
No, they don't just want the final master track. They almost always require the instrumental versions and the individual stems.
Stems meaning the isolated instrument track.
Correct. Just the drum track, or just the synthesizer, or just the vocals.
Why do they need them isolated?
Because if a video editor is cutting that commercial, the lead vocal might clash with the dialogue of the actor speaking on screen.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, they need the stems so they can drop the vocal out during the dialogue and then swell it back in when the logo appears at the end.
That makes perfect sense.
And 786Muzik's obsessive organization of their metadata and file structures from day one is exactly what allows them to confidently deliver these assets and secure those high-paying corporate syncs.
Man, it all comes together. So let's look at the macro picture here. You have the legal plumbing laid down to catch the royalties.
Check.
You have the label-tiered distribution infrastructure safely migrated to Symphonic.
Check.
And you have compounding active revenue coming in from the YouTube broadcast network and the corporate sync licensing pipeline. Where does this ultimately lead?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right, because you don't spend hours generating cryptographic hashes and rendering out vocal stems just for next week's single drop.
You certainly don't. And this is the core philosophy that really separates a hobbyist from a true business owner.
The long game.
Exactly. The case study reveals that 786Muzik operates on a strict 10-year vision. Their goal is not a quick cash grab based on a viral TikTok trend that will be totally forgotten in 3 weeks.
No, they are building something permanent.
They are creating a family legacy. It is a business architecture designed intentionally to outlast the current cultural moment.
And that architecture includes a fascinating geographic expansion plan, right? What the sources call the DBA expansion concept.
Yeah, DBA meaning doing business as.
Right. Because they are 786Muzik, 786 being a Miami area code, they actually plan to use area codes as a franchising model to build a nationwide footprint.
It's a really clever branding strategy.
It is. They have plans for 212Muzik to capture the New York market, 206Muzik for Seattle, and so on. So if we connect all this, building a music catalog isn't really about the music industry at all. No, it is literally just digital real estate, right?
That is a profound way to look at it, and it is entirely accurate.
You're laying down the LLC foundation. The sequential ISRC codes and the SHA 256 hashes are basically the property deeds proving you own the land.
I love that analogy.
And over a 10-year horizon, you are building a nationwide portfolio of properties that just sit there collecting rent through streaming, YouTube ads, sync placements, and mechanical royalties to eventually pass down to your kids.
It is digital real estate that appreciates in value as it gets integrated into more media over time. A well-documented, properly registered music catalog with 10 different compounding revenue streams is a massive, inheritable long-term investment.
It really is.
And what is beautiful about the 786Muzik case study is that they manage all this intense corporate structure under one guiding creative principle.
It is.
The vibe is the only rule.
I love that.
Right. They allow the music to be pure art, but they treat the protection and distribution of that art as a rigorous, unforgiving science.
Okay, we have covered some incredibly dense ground today. Let's do a rapid-fire recap of this blueprint for you.
Let's do it.
We started with the absolute necessity of registering a single-member LLC and setting up specialized royalty tracks with BMI, Sound Exchange, and the MLC to prevent that IRS backup withholding.
Essential plumbing.
Yep. Then we explored how they permanently weaponize their audio ownership by generating SHA 256 cryptographic hashes and injecting Bext version 2 metadata directly into the files.
The digital wax seal.
Exactly. We broke down the critical scaling moment of migrating a catalog from DistroKid to Symphonic to handle complex roster accounting. We examined how they hacked the YouTube algorithm with consistent thumbnails to build a broadcast network.
And we talked about the indie superpower.
Right. How they use their independent one-stop shop superpower to secure corporate sync deals. And finally, we saw how it all rolls up into a digital real estate portfolio, driven by a 10-year vision for family legacy and a 212Muzik nationwide expansion.
And the universal takeaway here, the reason this matters to you, even if you have absolutely no intention of ever making electronic music, is about the fundamental relationship between creativity and structure.
It applies to everything.
It really does. Whether you are starting a music label, launching a tech startup, or just trying to organize your creative hobbies, sweeping, ambitious, 10-year creative visions are only made possible by meticulously organized, often boring foundational groundwork.
Yeah, you simply cannot turn on the faucet and expect water if you haven't taken the time to build the plumbing.
You cannot catch what you haven't built a trap for.
Which brings me to a final thought for you to chew on today. We just spent this entire deep dive exploring how a meticulously cataloged digital asset like a 3-minute electronic track can generate compounding royalties for generations, strictly because it has the right metadata and legal protection attached to it.
Right.
So look at your own life and ask yourself, what other digital creations are you making every single day? Whether it's lines of code, freelance writing, graphic designs, or even just the emails you write. What else should you be locking down with your own digital wax seals and treating as inheritable family assets?
Something to think about.
Definitely. Until next time, keep diving deep.